Yet again, they're declaring the sequel trilogy will one day be popular and beloved by the fans. There's just one problem. They don't understand that's never going to come to be. Today we'll tell you what's different about the prequels versus the sequels, and why nobody's coming to save the Reylos in any galaxy far, far away. Hello folks, hello friends, welcome back yet again. What another great opportunity we have to share in explaining what's really going on in Hollyweird. As we dive in, click the like button, drop a comment down below, join a community dialogue today. And what a shame it would be if we did not get a subscription from you, because that's what we're aiming to do every single time we release another video explaining the hallowed halls of Hollywood. Will the sequel trilogy be as popular as the prequels? That's what Lucasfilm and their friends are now saying. Let's dive in and find out if you agree. From IGN by Tom Phillips, Star Wars sequels will eventually become as beloved as the prequels in 10 years' time, says man behind the BB-8. It's perfectly fine if you don't like them, by the way. The puppeteer behind Star Wars droid BB-8 has said Disney's divisive sequel trilogy will eventually become as beloved as the saga's prequels in around the decade's time. I think we should be there, right? Yeah, it's been, what, 10 years since the sequels got going? I know that makes you feel old, but, you know, shouldn't the kids who grew up with it suddenly, never mind, let's just see what he says. In an interview with Game Reactor, BB-8 operator Brian Herring compared the current mood around Disney Star Wars sequels to the initial response for George Lucas prequels, which were widely despised by veteran fans back in the 2000s. Over time, fan opinion towards the prequels had softened somewhat, as the young fans who grew up with Darth Maul and Jar Jar now look back on The Phantom Menace, Attack of the Clones, and Revenge of the Sith with some nostalgia. Folks, we don't have to keep reading. That's the story there, but I have to say I don't see the evidence of that, and I'll show you why. Out of That Park Place by Tim Lee, Darth Vader is coming to former Jedi Academy training stage at Disney's Hollywood Studios. What's this about? Well, it turns out that the original trilogy characters are still very popular, and Disney at Disneyland has basically put the original characters back into their Star Wars area. Hollywood Studios now saying, you know, we need Darth back. We'll get Darth back. It wouldn't surprise me if they've got little Jedi Padawans running around, the kids doing this, because, well, otherwise Universal Studios is going to eat their lunch. And Lauren, I was just wondering here, as you are the Star Wars guru supreme, what do you think about this idea that the sequels, you know, we just have to give it time and they're going to be popular again, and maybe we'll have little Rey cartoons happening, and I don't know, is there a renaissance on the way for these things?
Yes, absolutely. Completely. Believe it.
I feel like every year we get these kinds of stories, and it's kind of like the ostrich is poking his head back out of the ground to find out, is it possible? Could we, are they popular yet? Are they popular yet? And every single time I think, no, their entire channels. Wizard just hit 100K, and he came into existence as a YouTuber because of how bad the post-George Lucasfilm has been.
Yep. The Acolyte. It was the watching all of you guys cover the Acolyte was my entry point into content creation. So I say it this way: John Wick, they killed his dog. For me, they killed Luke Skywalker, and that's how I got into this game. No, people would have more reverence for it now. But Disney continues to produce nonsense and stuff that no one wants to see and stuff no one cares about, to the point where the brand continues to diminish. And actually, it's not even everything that Lucasfilm themselves produces. The video games don't sell anymore. The books don't sell anymore. The ancillary media that's attached to Star Wars, no one wants, because no one can tell a good Star Wars story anymore. If we look at the time, if we compare this time period, 10 years or so after the prequels dropped, we were still talking about the prequels. We were still excited about the prequels. Like, we were even 5 years after, 6 years after, the moment the Revenge of the Sith came out and it was over, there was this kind of like sadness that, oh no, the prequels are done. But wait a minute, we still got all the video games and books and everything else coming out to be excited for. You don't have any of that now. There is zero excitement for Star Wars.
Lorna, go ahead, Lorna, and I've got a follow-up for you.
There's a few additional points I'd like to make. First of all, we were just at MegaCon. Did you see any Kylo Rens?
No.
Did you see any Reys?
How about May or OSHA?
I didn't see one.
Not a single OSHA.
Not one. Now, granted, I was only there for one day.
Fire marshal, no OSHA.
It's possible on the days that I wasn't there that maybe there were some people dressed up that way, but I didn't see one. The prequels, in large part, had a reevaluation because the younger kids who watched those movies when they came out also had the Clone Wars animated shows that greatly expanded the characters of Anakin and Obi-Wan, and those became that generation's heroes. They got a different impression of the prequel movies than the adults that saw the movies when they came out. And I don't think it can be overstated how much the Clone Wars reinvigorated prequel attachment. The sequel trilogy has none of that. They tried to do a cartoon show that I can't even remember the name of. It was awful. It was truly terrible. And they only had 2 seasons and canceled it. And Wizard's right. Nobody is really buying the merchandise. I will push back slightly on the video games because I do think that the Jedi Fallen Order and Jedi Survivor games were very popular, but that's not dealing with the sequel trilogy in any way. So, I think that there are still some portions of Star Wars that are sort of active, but it's very niche stuff.
Let me get the follow-up to Lauren real quick. Lauren, you and I had a very important conversation. This is you and Marvin. And who's in between you, Lauren?
That is Nick Gillard.
And what did he do for Star Wars, Lauren?
He was the stunt coordinator for the prequel trilogy. He created the lightsaber fighting style for that era and was the stunt choreographer for all of those films.
And Duel of Fates? He choreographed Duel of Fates?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Okay.
Lauren, did they call him? Did they ask him for his help, his expertise when it came time for the sequels?
They did not.
Lauren, we had Jonas and I had a meeting with Timothy Zahn maybe a year or 2 ago. And we talked with him. Timothy Zahn said that he was excited that they were going to start using Thrawn. At the time, they had not put him out yet into the series. And he said he was waiting for the call. He was hoping that he would get the call to advise on it. He told us that writing such an intelligent character is not an easy task. You have to really think hard about what he would do and when he would do it. Lauren, did they call Timothy Zahn probably the most prolific and exciting writer ever for Star Wars?
They did not.
I think, Lauren, that the conversation we had about this is why Lucasfilm fell on its face and why I disagree that the sequels are going to be like the prequels. I think they disregarded the genius of the people who had come before them. And in doing so, their hubris caught them and tripped them. And I don't think they can get up again.
Yeah, I think that's very fair. It's the people that are running the show now see it as an IP to be milked. They're not people that have a deep understanding or care for the franchise. They see it just as a money printing machine. Unfortunately for them, it's not printing money. So unless they're willing to actually accept some responsibility for what they've done, throw out some of the stuff that they have done, and actually bring people on board who care about the properties, it's unrecoverable.
Now, all of that said, let me go to Alan real quick. And Culture, I promise I'll come to you. I'm sorry, I know, but Alan, there is one opportunity here. I'm not sure that Mandalorian Grogu is going to do much, but you and I both really enjoy Project Hail Mary. And Ryan Gosling is no small part of that. My understanding is he's going to be in Starfighter. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
Ryan Gosling, yes. Isn't it?
Yeah. So, Alan, Ryan Gosling, fresh off of Project Hail Mary, he is the Ken. He is the guy who might be able to put this thing back on the rails, maybe. Mando and Pedro, I'm not so sure about, but Starfighter has got a chance. What do you think about that? Is that the Hail Mary for Lucasfilm?
Right. No, I mean, the problem is Starfighter is in the Star Wars universe, but it has nothing to do with the overall lore of Star Wars. And,
well, at this point,
I think the movie is going to be a great cash infusion for Lucasfilm, but it won't do anything to bring people to the brand. I was just thinking, I saw the first Star Wars movie when it was called Star Wars when I was 10 years old at the movie theater. And then all the way up until 1999 when Phantom Menace came out, somehow most people who were fans of Star Wars had never seen Star Wars in a movie theater. And you continue that today. The more and more people will have never seen Star Wars in a movie theater. But the thing is that when Lucas was running it, he was able to capture one generation after another, and then with the prequels, he captured. He broadened that audience. He made those movies for the kids of that time. That's not happening with the sequels. I mean, there's, you can't. Oh, I can tell you, my daughter and her friends couldn't care less about Star Wars.
Right.
And not impressed with the sequels. I have to beg her sometimes to watch the originals. They just don't care because it's just
some teens don't even know what Star Wars is anymore, Alan.
Yeah.
But Alan, the Force was female.
Yeah.
It's for them. They didn't want to watch it.
Well, it was for the people who made it, the females who made it, but it wasn't for the females who
That's
wanted
right.
it. Let me
Fair
speak
point.
to the stores.
Please.
After the pandemic ended, we went to downtown Disney. They have a Star Wars store where Rainforest Cafe used to be. There was all Grogu, Mandalorian, and all the new stuff. We went just as Din Tai Fung opened, and they switched all back to original Star Wars.
Yeah. Well, Alan, it was maybe 3 years ago. They were doing the High Republic and Barnes and Nobles. Yeah, exactly. Barnes and Nobles had a contract where they had to do the end caps in High Republic stuff. However, they also had leeway because I talked to a manager. This is one of our big gets in the early days. They were able to put in other Star Wars stuff. The High Republic was selling so poorly, and we had photos of this. We went to multiple Barnes and Nobles. It was a great story three or so years ago. What Barnes and Nobles had done, because they can't afford to lose that kind of money on novels that won't sell, they had stacked the High Republic books on the floor, and they had put Timothy Zahn books on the end cap. Technically, they were following what the contract said, but they had to sell something, and High Republic just wouldn't do it.
Wow. Yeah, it's interesting. The last 2 years, the key word has always been leverage, or has been leverage, and Disney is spending their leverage rapidly to the point where movie theaters, they were just producing one bad movie after another, and they lost the leverage with theaters to dictate how their movies are going to play, how long they're going to play, and it's transferring itself to all the other ones, to bookstores. They no longer have that kind of leverage to be able to dictate how their products are placed in their stores. And look, good job, Bob Iger. This is your legacy.
Good job, Bob. Hey, Culture, I have held you back this entire segment. I apologize. The floor is yours for whatever and however long you'd like to say it.
No, and you were right to do so, actually, because, again, I'm a question machine. So doesn't Disney already admit that the new offerings, the sequel trilogy, were a failure? Because we're witnessing them doing massive changes to the whatever they want to call the Galaxy's Edge, right? They're doing massive changes to reframe that within the original trilogy.
I think you're right. Yeah.
So they already know it's a failure. So this is just terrible ways to go about, talking a different side of your face, or talking out of a different side of your face. Why are they doing this? Why, when the Let's Get High Republic failed so spectacularly, limiting the amount of units sold of those books to maybe 15 to 25%, and a lot of people have noted that they fell in sales somewhere between 90 and 95% between the first phase of the books and where we are currently. This is why they're giving up. Their publishing efforts absolutely failed. What happened when they canceled? I guess, what do they call it? The old stuff that we used to enjoy, the legacy products. What happened to the minute you dismiss those or get rid of them? What happened to them at that moment? Did they not realize what Kathleen Kennedy had done, or is it just me, noticing that they've destroyed basically every aspect of Lucasfilm's offerings?
Well, it's, and on top of that, Culture, the way that you sink a Disney stock is to do this to multiple franchises. So Star Wars, Marvel, Pixar, it's all ruining the flywheel. And as a result, you've got the stock dropping. And, you know, it's not just Star Wars fans who are hurting. It's Mexican Iron Man who has, I don't know, $3 billion in Disney stock, something like that. I don't want to assume, but he's got a lot. Things are not going well, and they need to get this turned around. Investors are going to be mad about Star Wars, about Marvel, and about so much else. You know, it's always sad when one of these video ends, and yet it is the beginning of the wait for the next one to land. 4 times a day right here on the Pro Channel. And by the way, there's plenty more on our partner channels, That Park Place, That Pod Place, That Game Place, and go check out the original music we have on stations like Vacation Radio. We'd love to have you, love to entertain you. At least we'll do a better job than some of the current entertainment companies. Folks, like, share, subscribe, and you know what? Drop a comment right on down below. Share this out anywhere you go on social media. And until the next time, we have the honor, the pleasure of getting to spend time with you when you choose to invite us into your day to add the value that we hope to bring your way. We ask that you keep learning, keep growing, and as always, keep having fun.